get started. Once again, very good evening and a warm welcome to you from Coaches for You family. Coaches for You is a community of coaches from all parts of the country who have joined hands to support society at large during the challenging times. In addition to the webinar that you will be hearing today, Coaches for You also offers one-on-one coaching session at no cost with one of the many experienced coaches that are there with us. I am Parina, your host for the session today. I also wish to inform you that today's session will be recorded and will be posted on YouTube for further viewership. As more and more people are joining in, before we go ahead, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Venkatesh Madurai Subramaniam, fondly known as Venki. He's an IT professional with 23 years of experience in IT. Venki's introduction to IT started with him playing with electronic bulletin boards way before in 1997, even before internet service was available in India. His focus on IT helped him to expand it and have his own startup. He had his first e-commerce application in 1997. In 98, he launched a startup for travel technology system for 124 hotels in India. By year 2000, he quit his startup and joined a reputed travel tech organization and worked in various parts of the world like France, UK, US, and Bangalore. Currently, Venki is running a startup for travel technology, and he has a unique patent pending solution that is all set to disrupt some of aspects of airport solutions. Venki is also a life and leadership coach by passion, and this occupies some of his current focus as well. On a personal front, Venki is an adventurer at heart, and he has different activities on the ground and above, like skydiving, paragliding, scuba diving, stand-up comedy, and many more. A father of two, he's a fun-loving guy, and has his own sense of humor, and he brings a lot of energies to whatever he focuses on. I'm sure today Venki will bring his sense of humor and energy to the session. And you will have a lot of fun as well as learning in this session. With this, I'll hand it over to Venki, who will take you through in this session. Over to you, Venki.
Thank you so much, Parina. Good evening, everyone, on this nice Friday evening, and good morning or good afternoon to wherever you're joining us from. I'm going to start with a very brief introduction. You know, when we start our day, how many times have we heard somebody saying that, oh, I had an accident in the morning, or I bumped into somebody, and everything that goes wrong has gone wrong today, and the day is completely ruined, blah, 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 and they just go on and on and on and on. And what we end up asking them is, we end up saying something like, okay, good, let's get on with it now. You had your venting movement, and let's focus on what we really need to do. Now, a small disclaimer before we start. All the images that you're going to see are very representative. They're only for reference. They don't depict the entire truth. Like this one, for example. Although I would like to focus on romance and expand it, my wife doesn't share it all the time. So there is from her point of view, too much focus on romance. From my point of view, not enough. But on a more serious note, you know, being the strict mother that she is, when it comes to our son, Dhananjay, she's a very tough mother, right? Like, I guess many of our mothers, like there was this time when this guy was a teenager. You're probably thinking that I got married at the age of 14 or something. But anyway, so when this guy was a teenager, we were having food together, Dhananjay and I, and his mom was after his life. She was focusing on things like you didn't pack your bags properly, your shoes are lying here, your socks are lying there, you didn't do your homework yesterday, blah, blah, blah. She went on and on and on and on. And then this guy looks at me and he says, Appa, you've been married to her for so long, like whatever, 15 years or so. How do you handle her? What do you do when she's focusing on things that I don't like? I said, well, beta, what you do is she's telling you 10 things. Let us assume that maybe she's valid for at least, let's say, 2 or 3 of those things. And you focus on that. Just those 2 or 3 things that she's talking about, where you think that she's at least partially right, if not totally right. And then you see the magic happen. She's going to see that you're making an effort, and life will be a lot more easier for you. So this cheeky guy, he thinks for a minute, and then the next thing he says is, Amma, you know what Appa just told me? This is how he's been handling you all these years. And then I become the topic of focus, and then things expand in a very predictable way. So bottom line is that when we put our focus on whatever we choose consciously to put our focus on, it does expand, right? It does fill in a lot of gaps. One of my trainers, one of my earliest coaches, he did something like this. He said, and you could try this yourself. He said, just wrap your fingers on a hole like this, keep it far away from you, and gradually bring it closer and closer and closer to your eye. This little hole, it expands, right? Very simple analogy, but it's really beautiful. So that's the theme of our talk today. And as we move along, I'm going to share more of my personal experiences with you guys so that you could see how I've tried to apply focus in my life so far. And having introduced my wife and my son, let me now introduce a beautiful, lovely, absolutely delightful neighbor that we had some time back. And this time, my wife wasn't very jealous of her. Even she fell in love with the neighbor. This neighbor is actually a red-vented bulbul, very popular in Bangalore. And it was the same species of bird that had built its nest the previous year. And the nest that it had built, it was within touching distance from our door, from our entrance. And it was happily building its nest over a period of weeks, laid some eggs, and then hatched them. It was such a beautiful experience, so lovely, right? It set me thinking, if something gets created, a nest, a bird, a baby, whatever, something gets created, there has to be a creator, right? Whatever or whoever that creator may be. For example, it could be your own mother, it could be a spiritual entity, God, nature, whatever, but there is a creator. Now, in the case of this little red-vented bulbul, it was born with this instinct to build a nest. It's natural for it, right? It was born with that ability. It was born with that talent. Nobody's taught it, right? So I think it is very safe and fair for us to assume that when we were born in this world, we have been blessed and gifted with some natural talents and abilities that our creator, whosoever we choose as our creator to be, has gifted us with, right? So this is something that is, I believe, is very important for us to be in touch with our true self, our true nature. What is it that we are born with, that we are gifted with, that we should always cherish and value in our lives? Not just that, but as we grow, right, there are so many things that we learn over a period of time. For example, cubs, they observe the lioness hunting and they learn from it, right? They learn from it, they watch, they adapt, they play around, they practice with amongst themselves, and they fine tune it to the extent that when they grow up, they can be self-sufficient. They know which animal to target, at what speed, at what location, how to camouflage themselves, and so on. So even if we are born with certain natural gifts and talents, there is a lot that I believe we accumulate over a period of time. When we go through life, when we experience different aspects and so on. The environment in which we grow up in, the kind of culture, the kind of surroundings, the kind of situations, they shape us. They shape us into the person that we are today, isn't it? Now, if we look at the animal kingdom, let's look at elephants, for example. They have a lifespan that is kind of similar to human beings, right? But what is really amazing is, and I was thinking a lot about this, when other mammals are born, even birds, etc., they are able to walk on all fours within minutes. A baby elephant, for example, starts walking on all its fours within an hour of having been born. Amazing, right? But for us humans, it takes us, what, 8, 9 months, something like that, before we start crawling on all fours. Why this difference? What is special about us? Now, we are on top of the food chain, right? And our brains have evolved over so many millions of years, right? The fact is, and it is scientifically proven, that in comparison with all the other mammals, human beings are born premature, right? Because the way our brain needs to evolve so that it can be fully functional, even to a small extent, such as crawling, it needs to develop, the head needs to grow, and so on. And it is logistically impossible for that to happen in a woman's womb, right? It's not possible, which is why, thanks to the way men have evolved, human beings take a lot of time to evolve for the brain to be ready. So we grow outside the mother's womb, and then we adapt. We learn, we watch the surroundings, we see the environment we are in, and then we grow up. So it is very safe for us to assume that in addition to whatever our creator has blessed us with, we also learn on the job, right? Our brain is constantly evolving. Now, as we grow up, as we go through the different stages of our lives, there is this aspect of perfection that starts creeping in, right? I didn't run fast enough as the rest of my schoolmates in a sports event, for example. I didn't score enough marks compared to somebody else. I need to be perfect. That is either a perfection that is imposed on me by my parents, my siblings, my teachers, or whatever, or I impose on myself as a child. So we start looking at ourselves in terms of being perfect. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there is anything wrong in striving for perfection, right? It's a very noble thing to do. But at the same time, I think there's a line that we cross in our zeal to pursue perfection. We get obsessed with our weaknesses. Why is it that when the rest of the world is not really a perfect place, when it comes to us humans, we suddenly have this unquenchable desire to be perfect? Even the Mother Earth, for example, the axis is a bit tilted, right? It doesn't spin on a vertical axis, isn't it? So the world around us is not perfect. So why is it that when we are born different compared to the other human beings, because of our intellect, because of the way we've evolved, because of a higher intelligence compared to the rest of the animals, we end up thinking that we are special and we need to be perfect? Now, this focus on perfection can have different kinds of results, isn't it? If we are constantly focusing on what we are not good at, what we are not able to do naturally, which is in our natural style of being and doing, we might run into trouble. And at the same time, I think the way we generally look at the world and people and other aspects around us, we start categorizing things. We start saying that, everything belongs to kind of a typecast. For example, we say that all birds can fly, which is not true. Penguins, for example, they are one of the six generations of six kinds of species of birds that can't fly, right? But they make fantastic swimmers, isn't it? So rather than looking at each one of us as individuals, belonging to a certain type, for example, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert or I'm a leader, I'm not a leader, I'm this, I'm not that, blah, blah, blah. Why can't we look at what each one of us or the people around us are good at doing naturally? Penguins are fantastic swimmers. They are natural swimmers, right? They are born to swim. That is their nature. So I think this focus is very important, where each one of us, we focus on what we are naturally good at. And if we are responsible for others, what are they naturally good at and what their strengths are. I'm sorry, I heard an echo somewhere in between. Somebody needs to go on mute, please, I think, unless you have a question. So coming back to penguins, this is somebody was talking. No, okay. All right, let's look at another species of animal. Let's look at fishes, right? Fish, we assume, are meant to swim, but there are 3 species of fish that can actually climb trees. They've evolved over a period of time to adapt and to be able to climb trees. There is this famous quote that is often attributed to Einstein, where he says that if we judge a fish by its ability to climb trees, the fish will grow up thinking that it is inherently stupid, right? We don't know if Einstein actually said that, but it is often attributed to him. Now, the picture that you see on your bottom right was a video from National Geographic where they filmed a catfish climbing a vertical wall. So these species of fish that you see in front of you, they evolved over a period of time because they focused on their so-called weakness to be able to, climb trees. And they arrived. Let's take another example. Let's say that there's a fish that is a vegetarian like me, for example, and it is focused on eating a fruit. Now, there are a couple of ways it could achieve that, right? It could follow the other species of fish that evolved over a period of time and then get to its objective. Now, here's the thing. What does a fish naturally do? It swims, right? Now, if this fish is able to use its natural talent, what it is good at, and uses that for its benefit and to reach its objective, it gets what it wants, right? What an amazing story. Now, if we put ourselves in this position where we are faced with some hurdles, we are faced with some limitations that either our creator has blessed us with or we grew up into, and we look at the objective that we would like to achieve, the fruit in this case, for example, what else could the fish do apart from using what comes naturally to it? It could, for example, befriend a monkey. Even if the monkey can be naughty at times, it could befriend a squirrel, some other birds, for example, and get what it wants, right? It doesn't have to climb a tree. It still could if that is the objective of climbing trees. But the other 3 species of fish that we saw before, it has taken it generations of evolution to reach that stage, isn't it? So again, the thought I would like to propose to you is that as we move along our lives and as we are responsible for others around us, let us pause and truly look at the objective that we would like to achieve. For example, let's say somebody who's reporting to me at the workplace, he or she is not organized. Now I can hammer it in all that I want, that, you need to be organized, you need to plan your meetings properly, blah, 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 blah. But that person is going to struggle because he or she is simply not organized. They love the mess around them like I do, for example. I revel in mess, But if I keep hammering it into myself or into somebody else who's disorganized, they're going to spend a lot of time and energy in in resolving that mess, but they may not be able to achieve the objective at the end of the day, isn't it? So the lesson from this video for me is it is very important to be focused on the real objective. And when it comes to objectives, I think one aspect of focus also is the intention, right? When I'm looking at somebody else's objective and the focus, if I assume, for example, that irrespective of the nature of the other person and what I think of him or her, even if he or she is the most nefarious and most vile of criminals on this planet, who's done something really sinful and really a dastardly crime, right? If for a moment I focus on the fact that that person did something wrong because he or she wanted something positive for himself or herself, the rest of the world around him or her sees that as a crime. But within himself or herself, he or she wanted to achieve something positive. Can that be a focus when we look at others and we challenge their intentions and their own objectives and their own selfish desires, so to speak? Can we focus on this objective? What is their positive intention for themselves? That's something very interesting to think about, and it can be very rewarding when we talk to ourselves or others in times of conflicts. I'm sorry. Let me talk of another situation with my son. So when my son was about 9 years old, he was living outside the country, outside India. And in France, for example, there was no concept at that age of examinations, evaluations, and so on. And then we moved to India, where suddenly this little guy, he had to face something called exams and tests and so on and so forth. And he was very nervous about it. He didn't know what to expect. He didn't know what would happen and so on. And this guy, he was good at mathematics. So the test that he had one day, his first one in India, was on this topic. It was a small little, quarterly unit test or something like that. He was very nervous when he left for school. I knew he had prepared well. I was sitting in office and I get this call from his teacher, somebody at the school, and she says, "This guy's crying. Can you come and pick him up? He says he's got a very bad stomach ache, blah, blah, blah." So I said, "Can I talk to him?" So this guy comes on the phone. He's no longer crying. I said, "How are you feeling?" He said, "I'm better now." I said, "Okay. Did you give the test?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay. What would you like to do now?" He said, "I want to go back home." I said, "Okay, fair enough." So I dropped everything at work, rushed to the school, picked him up, driving home back in the car. And I look at him and I said, "You sure the stomach ache has gone?" He said, "Yes." And then he gives me a small little smile. I said, "What happened?" He said, "I was very nervous and I think that caused the stomach ache." I said, "Okay, fine, but did you prepare well?" He said, "Yes, I had prepared well." I said, "Then it's okay. I mean, even if you had failed or got very low marks, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. We would get over it and do better the next time. But as long as you prepared well, I don't really care. I will be a little disappointed and I hope you will be as well. But it's not the end of life. We will move forward." So I made him focus on the very sheer aspect of preparing well and trying not to worry too much about the outcome, right? The message was, let's focus on the effort and handle the outcome whenever it happens, because outcome is something that is never in my control. There are so many factors that come into play. Whatever be the thing that I desire, the outcome can never be in my control or influence completely, isn't it? Now, this is the background of the story I'm going to tell you next with Dhananjay. This guy, when we were living outside India, he developed an interest in music. So we put him onto a tutor who taught him how to play the piano. We got him a keyboard at home. And then when we moved to Bangalore, we put him in touch with a tutor who continued the lessons for him. And as he continued the lessons, suddenly after a couple of months, he came to me and he said, "Appa, I want to stop going to this guy." I said, "What happened?" He said, "This guy, he's forcing me to take exams in in music for keyboard. So I meet the tutor. I said, what is this? Why do you want him to take exams? He's not interested. The tutor says, but he will do well. He's very good at it. He will get very high marks. He might get a scholarship somewhere. He could become a teacher tomorrow of music, full-time, part-time, whatever. He's got a bright future in music. I said, well, I don't care. He's playing, learning music, for enjoyment. Don't put the pressure of tests on him. I really don't care. And neither does he. So the tutor says, okay. And then a month later, my son comes back and says, enough is enough. The guy is not listening. I want to stop. I said, but what about music? You're interested in it. And my son says, no, Appa, I will, learn it all by myself. It's okay. So this guy continued at home, and later on he wanted a bass guitar and an acoustic guitar, etc. And he learned it at home totally. Now the result was absolutely brilliant. In his university, he formed a music group called Kelvi Kuri, which means a question mark in Tamil, by the way. And these guys, they went on to playing at various locations. For example, they played at the Hard Rock Cafe in Bangalore. They had their own show. They were the opening band for a famous music group called Agam. They played at various locations in India. And this band, Kelvi Kuri, they went on to win many inter-college championships. They won, in fact, almost all of the ones that they participated in. And this guy, he also got the Bassist of the Year award in many events. So beautiful, right? Absolutely lovely. Not just that, even he was featured in the Deccan newspaper in Bangalore on a weekend. And by the way, thanks to him, I was featured the week after for a different topic altogether that I will talk about shortly. Now, this guy, he is a real source of inspiration for me personally. He focused on his passion for music. He didn't care about a formal education or a training in it or the exams, etc. And he made it happen along with his other bandmates, right? What a beautiful story. Now, when this guy hears this, that I spoke about him like this, he's going to be on cloud 9. But I think it's okay. He deserves it, Absolute, beautiful, such a heartwarming success story. Now, if along with his tutor, his music tutor, if we had focused on him passing those blessed exams, I don't know where it would have taken him. Maybe he would have given up music altogether, or he would have done something else. Maybe he wouldn't have, been so successful in what he did. Amazing story, right? Let's talk of focus in a different way when the world around us sets limitations. Before Usain Bolt cracked the world record for 100 meter sprint, there were so-called experts who said that it is impossible for a human being to run 100 meters within 10 seconds. And he did that. So what did Usain Bolt actually do? He didn't care about the limitation. He focused on what he could achieve. And he had a lot of things going for him in that 100-meter dash. People claim that that was possible because of a tailwind that he had, and so on and so forth. But the basic point here is when he focused on what he wanted to achieve, an all-time world record, even Mother Nature complied, right? The tailwind maybe helped him a little bit. I don't know. But that's the power of focus. What we focus on expands. And just as a little bit of a fun video, this is what he had done in space. Even there, he came first, where he was running in almost zero gravity. This was basically an ad for a champagne company that filmed this video. Absolutely an absolute delight to watch this. Okay, now let me talk of something else. About, I think 3 or 4 years back, when my wife was walking around in a lake nearby, this is the Kaikondrelli Lake in Bangalore, she bumped into this guy. When I had hair on my head, I need to grow it back. People used to think that this guy, Milind Soman, looked like me. Anyway, so this was a good, let's say, shot in the arm for me. I said, okay, let's stop walking around or doing some light jogging, and let's get serious about running. If nothing else, just to maybe go back and try and impress my wife. Now, I was getting into fitness after practically, a gap of something like 30 odd years in terms of doing something really serious on fitness like running. And my creator blessed me with a pair of flat feet. They are as flat as a duck's feet, for example. And when I started trying to run, I had all kinds of pain. I saw a bunch of physiotherapists. They all said, "Are you crazy? You're 47 years old. Do some walking. Don't run. You will hurt yourself," and so on and so forth. But I was determined to be my own small little Usain Bolt, if nothing else, to at least impress my wife and my daughter. So I did some work and I bumped into this fantastic coach of mine, Nirupma Singh. Now she is an amazing fitness story in herself. When I started training with her, it was a matter of time before I actually broke some of my own records. For example, from almost a zero level of fitness where I could barely manage 2 kilometers at a stretch, I ran 10 kilometers in just a little more than an hour. My longest running has been something like 19 kilometers. I came second position in an event in my age group. Beautiful, right? What an amazing experience. So again, I focused on what really gave me the motivation. My motivation was to actually prove those physiotherapists wrong, prove myself also wrong in saying that I can achieve something where, I felt there was a challenge. And also till I started working, even after many years, even I think up to about 4 or 5 years back, I had a great amount of stage fright. Every time I would go on a stage, I would be petrified of the audience. My stomach would tighten up. I would have butterflies in my stomach. My knees would start shaking literally. And I somehow managed to conquer it. For example, at one event where there was an audience of, I think, around 3,000 odd people, I played the role of Michael Jackson on stage, made a complete ass of myself on stage, trying to do the moonwalk. My little princess, she still makes fun of me to this day. That this is how Appa did the moonwalk. It was a total disaster. But we all had fun. Everybody had a laugh. And a couple of years later, I played this role of Heath Ledger on stage in front of, again, an audience of 3,000 odd people, which was beautiful. When I got back home, showed this Heath Ledger video to my son, and I asked him, "What do you think?" Because both of us are great fans of that movie, The Dark Knight. And my son says, "Not bad, Appa." What a beautiful compliment coming from him, right? So what did I focus on? On a more serious note, I focused on, making people laugh. Let people laugh at me, with me. I didn't really care. As long as, people around me and me are having a good time. Another example of where focus worked for me, where I got over my stage fright. And this is not just theory that I'm talking about. There are studies that show that students perform very well, where employees, their productivity levels increase dramatically, where attrition levels of employees drop drastically when the focus was on their strengths. How many appraisal meetings at the workplace have you heard where people say, "I got an appraisal meeting coming up with my boss, and I'm petrified about it because he's going to hammer things into me, talk to me about what I didn't do well, where I need to improve on my weakness," and so on and so forth. How many times have we heard that? There's a study that says that when employers focus on the strengths of their employees, productivity level increases, attrition level drops, and so on. So before I wind up, my question to all of us is, what is it that we are going to focus on, each one of us individually? What is the one thing that we will focus on, not just for ourselves, but even on those around us? Are we going to focus on our own weaknesses and for others that we are responsible for? What is the one thing that we individually can commit on and make it a constant reminder that what we will focus on will expand for us. The universe will conspire, it will help. Mother Nature will help us when we focus on something that is really inspiring. And I would like you to think about this. If you would like to put it in the chat for all of us to see, please do that. And with that, I end my little presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Venki. That was really sharing a lot of inspiring stories and focusing on the positive and our strengths. So, a lot of comments have been coming in the chat session where a lot of people, our attendees, are commending Dhananjay for his achievements and also focusing on not focusing on exams. And people are sharing many comments over there saying that choice and freedom is something which one needs to learn on. So, from the comments, it looks like a lot of people enjoyed the session. And thanks for sharing these beautiful stories. With this, I'll invite all of you to ask any questions you may have for Venki. You can type in your chat box, and Venki will be happy to answer them.
I would like to take credit for Dhananjay's success as well, because after all, I'm his dad.
So, Venki, we have a question. What if there are, from Vijay, what if there are two strengths pulling you for focus? Have you been in such a situation?
I'm currently in a situation like this because I'm trying to do two things. One is my startup on the travel technology side, and the other is life coaching, where I'm trying to do something new as well. So there is no easy answer. Let me share something that my grandfather used to tell me. God bless him. He's not alive anymore, not in the present form. So he had two daughters-in-law, right? Constantly vying, competing with each other. The way daughter-in-laws generally compete. In this case, it was not all that healthy all the time, I must confess, but that was the story. So I used to keep badgering him, asking my grandfather, saying, "Who's your most favorite daughter-in-law, my mom or my aunt?" And my grandfather, being the political smartass that he was, he would look at me and says, "I got two eyes. Which one is more important for me?" even if one of them has got an infection, I don't care. I'm not going to chop it off. So I think priorities are something like that. If the way we look at them, if it's a pair of eyes, it's a pair of eyes. I think I don't know. It's a very large topic for me, but that is one thing I would like to share.
Okay. So Nilofer is asking, while we know we must focus on strengths, why is it that our attention goes to what's missing in situation or people? I think very important question.
Yeah, I think it is our desire for perfection. This unquenchable desire that I spoke of before. You know, this search for perfection is sometimes, it's like it becomes an obsession also at times. Instead of focusing on what is missing in situations of people, it's just a question of viewpoint, in my view. If we take the number 6, right, and we flip it horizontally, when we look at the number 6 horizontally, on one side it looks like a 9, and the other side it looks like a 6, doesn't it? So I think in terms of what is missing, whether it's situation, people, or whatever it is, I think it's two different viewpoints. And tuning our mind, I think it is practice like how we tune our body, right, physically, and so on. I think even the mind needs this tuning to look at these two different viewpoints. No viewpoint is inherently right or wrong. Sometimes what is missing can be critical, right? And sometimes it may not be so critical. So I think all this come into play, but inherently, it's my sincere belief that it is our desire and search for perfection that drives us to see what is missing in situations of people. And sometimes it could be very critical, like somebody not wearing a mask in these days. It's missing, and that gets our attention, but it's a valid one. There's a nice question from the next one from Saurabh.
Yes.
Speaking about faith. Now, faith, I think it's, again, my view of faith, my personal view is that even an atheist or an agnostic person has got some faith. When I'm wearing a mask, I have a faith that it's going to work and I'm not going to be infected by this bloody pandemic, isn't it? When I wake up in the morning, I have the faith that I will live to see another day, even if I'm bedridden and I'm on the verge of dying. So faith is something that I think we all exhibit in some way or the other. So having faith in my own strengths or in the strengths of people I depend on is again a matter of view. Irrespective of looking at faith as being something purely spiritual or religious, again, they're two different things for me, spirituality and religion. But if we acknowledge ourselves that we are practicing faith, if I don't have faith in my doctor, it's not going to be effective, the medicine prescription he or she gives me, because at some stage I'm not going to follow what the doctor has told me. So again, faith is a matter of practice for me. We are already exhibiting faith and we need to expand on that. How does focus help us as coaches? Let us focus on being a coach. Let us not focus on solving world hunger. If we can solve that, nothing like it. Don't get me wrong. But as a coach, what personally I do is I focus on what the coachee would like to achieve for himself or herself. I think a coach's role is to help a coachee reach somewhere where he or she wouldn't have reached herself or himself, right? Like in my fitness journey, for example, without this fantastic fitness coach of mine, she's my guru in fitness, okay? Maybe I wouldn't have reached the fitness level that I targeted where I am today. So I think as coaches, whatever be the kind of coach, a fitness coach, a life coach, leadership coach, or whatever, we need to be focused on taking the coachee where he or she wouldn't have gone all by himself or herself.
Venki, there is one comment which I want to read, even if it's out of turn. It says, "Hi everybody, I'm Venki's father. All my life, I was concentrating on others' faults. At the age of 78, I started thinking how to help, correcting their defects. I found the whole world around me changed. Now it is a pleasant life." Amazing.
Appa, it would have been a lot more pleasant if you had discovered this when I was 13 years old. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's never too late. I mean, hats off to him for acknowledging it in this public forum. But he's spot on, and I can see the difference in him. Even now when he asks me to explain my patent pending solution. In fact, just last week I told him for the fifth time, how the whole thing works, and I was losing my cool, but he stayed very calm and composed while I was losing my temper. Yeah, hats off to him. Yeah.
So there's another question, Venki, from Rani Mishra. Mind is more tuned at noticing what's missing rather than what's present. So your comment on that?
Yeah, again, the 6 and the 9, what's missing sometimes is very essential. Depends on what the context is. If it's something that is life threatening or life changing, noticing what is missing is very important, right? But in the normal walk of life, in most cases, again, tuning the mind can be very powerful. When we tune our mind, again, it's scientifically proven. There is this book on emotional intelligence by I forget the name of the author, very famous guy. I'll share it on the group offline later on. They've actually proved that when the mind is going through different emotions, there are chemical reactions in our brain. Even during running, for example, there's a chemical that gets triggered, giving us this feeling of happiness. So it's a matter of tuning the mind, and depending on the context, see what is missing and appreciate what is present.
Daniel Goleman, you're talking about?
Daniel Goleman, absolutely right. Thank you, Daniel Goleman. So there are two books, Working with Emotional Intelligence and Emotional Intelligence. Fantastic examples in there. Beautiful, beautiful reading.
No, really, pardon if I have missed anybody's question because a lot of questions were just flooding in. I've tried to keep everybody's questions here, but if by any chance I have missed any of your questions and you want to ask again, I'll really be happy if you can just type in again. But
Just while you do that, I just want to make an observation, Venki, that it's so blessed to have 3 generations of yourself in this forum. We are blessed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to these guys. I'm thrilled that my son is here because he's one hard nut to convince and satisfy. So I'm really happy he's here.
I think a lot of other messages appreciating a lot of parts about the session, Venki. So I think if we have no more questions, we'd like to end the session for today. So thanks a lot, Venki, and thank you everyone for coming here and being part of this session. Venki, once again, thanks for sharing your stories and your learning with everyone over here. We really appreciate that. And as shared earlier, Coaches for You is a community of coaches that has come together to help everybody, whosoever comes on the website. So if you or you know anybody who would like to have a no-cost session of coaching for themselves or for anybody, any of their friends and family, please refer them to Coaches for You. Thank you and have a great weekend.